#1 sports bar.
Hey, there's nothing worse than waking up to Adam, Chad, and the team at Hemphill are the only ones I trust to fix it and fix it right the first time. Hemphill Services does it right and always at a fair price. For all of your plumbing, cooling, and heating needs, trust the name that Birmingham has trusted since 1954. That is Hemphill Services. Call now, 205-229-2090. That's 205-229-2090. Hey, for all of your IT and printing needs, reach out to our friends at Xerox Business Solutions. Look, I'm still one of those old school guys. I print my notes every single day for the show. If you watch the show here on the Next Round, you see all the notes in front of me. From day one, Xerox Business Solutions, they've been with us here at the Next Round. Local for over 45 years. For all of your IT and printing needs, visit XeroxBusinessSolutions.com or call 205-969-3000. That's 205-969-3000.
It's bow time. Tired of choosing between sweet and savory? Why not have both? Introducing Bojangles' new chicken and bowberry waffles. The bold Cajun chicken filet you love, now drizzled with a bowberry honey glaze and sandwiched between two warm waffles. Which means your favorite meal of the day just met your new favorite dish. And lucky for you, it's served all day. But it's only here for a limited time, so try chicken and bowberry waffles at Bojangles today. It's bow time.
Catch up on all of today's Next Round on demand through the podcast platform of your choice. Apple, Spotify, iHeart, or Google Podcasts. Wherever you listen, always like, follow, subscribe, and turn on automatic downloads so you never miss any part of the Next Round.
Get all your favorite Next Round gear all in one place, nextround.store. From our Next Round hats to the logo tees to the all-time best-selling Y'all Can Have the Rest shirt, you can look your best by shopping with us at nextround.store. Take the Next Round anywhere with nextround.store.
The Double Down Media podcast family is live and full of content for all ages. The Mystery Fifth Hour gives the Next Round host a chance to talk about everything but sports. Pour a glass of Bama and bourbon, our weekly college football conversation while sipping some of the most interesting pours in the bourbon world. And our Not For All Ages podcast, The Last Call. LT takes off the gloves for an in-depth conversation with stars like Taylor Hicks, presented by Redmond Vodka. Find those podcasts and more by searching The Next Round on Apple, Spotify, and on our website, nextroundlive.com.
Think about the best summer nights of your life. How many of those were in a great t-shirt? Visit nextround.store to get the perfect t-shirt for the next perfect southern night. Nextround.store. The memories are waiting.
Never miss anything from the Next Round when you listen on demand through the podcast platform of your choice, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, or Google Podcast. Wherever you listen, always like, follow, subscribe, turn on automatic download so you can catch every part of the Next Round. Listen anywhere in the world, anytime on the Next Round podcast feed, and support the show by following, subscribing, and turning on automatic downloads on any podcast platform. Listen anywhere in the world, anytime on the Next Round podcast feed. Thanks for always making the Next Round a big part of your day.
Get all your favorite Next Round gear all in one place. Nextround.store. From our Next Round hats to the logo tees to the all-time best-selling Y'all Can Have the Rest shirt. You can look your best by shopping with us at Nextround.store. Take the Next Round anywhere with Nextround.store.
Catch up on all today's Next Round on demand through the podcast platform of your choice, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, or Google Podcast. Wherever you listen, always like, follow, subscribe, and turn on automatic downloads so you never miss any part of the Next Round.
It's bow time. Tired of choosing between sweet and savory? Why not have both? Introducing Bojangles' new chicken and bowberry waffles. The bold Cajun chicken filet you love, now drizzled with a bowberry honey glaze and sandwiched between two warm waffles. Which means your favorite meal of the day just met your new favorite dish. And lucky for you, it's served all day. But it's only here for a limited time, so try chicken and bowberry waffles at Bojangles today. It's bow time.
Have you been injured in an 18-wheeler accident, company truck accident, car accident, or work-related accident? Call Alabama's largest personal injury firm. Alexander TNR Trial Attorneys will fight for every dollar you deserve, and it won't cost you a dime. Trust me. What do you say, man?
Call me, Alabama.
Call 659-777-7777 or go to shenara.com.
No representation made that the legal services provided are better than legal services provided by other attorneys.
already to week 11 of the college football season. And it's becoming a Monday tradition, not just Monday Morning Live with Tom Luginbill, but somebody getting fired. And this time it's just down the street at Auburn. Hugh Freeze is out. We'll talk about that. Roback.com. Promo code TNR20. Go get the great golf wear. Perfect for the holidays. Tom Luginbill. Hugh Freeze is out. I will set it up by just saying Kentucky. They scored 3 against Kentucky. I joked at a speaking engagement the other day. Are you experiencing an earthquake? Nope, no earthquake, right? Just kidding.
There we go. Hold on.
No, that's okay.
I'm good.
Okay. I was like, we had an earthquake down the street at Talladega last Friday. It was 2.3 on the Richter scale. That looked a little bit more serious for a second. Hey, so I was doing a speaking engagement the other day, and I said, this was before the firing, before 3 against Kentucky, I said, what has been more productive over the last month, the federal government or Hugh Freeze's offense? The shutdown continues today, and so does the shutdown of the offense. When you heard Hugh Freeze was out, your first thought was what?
He forced their hand. You can't do that, right? You cannot go out at home and play that level of football against the current state of Kentucky's program and that football team. And not expect the next morning to get a call into the principal's office. I mean, it just, I think that I think a week ago you started to look at this from a broader perspective of saying, all right, we're getting a very oversaturated head coach opening pool, right? With a bunch of different candidates. So now you ask yourself, are you better off not making a move and going to the next cycle because you may not be the top choice or the second choice or what have you for whoever the best candidates are out there? And that probably a week ago would have been the likely move, or maybe the prudent, practical move when you're trying to see the bigger picture. But now you have to make a move. There's no going back from that performance on Saturday night.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I cannot remember, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just forget because I go to so many games. I can't remember in my years of covering of the fans chanting fire and the coach's name at Auburn. I've never heard that before. People hung around. It looked like just to say that at the end as Hugh Freeze was leaving. Why? Before we talk about the candidates, it seems very simple to say it didn't work because he chose the wrong quarterback in the portal twice in Peyton Thorne and Jackson Arnold. But is it a bigger picture about his offense 15 or a decade years later, since it really was wreaking havoc at times in the SEC? Has the game just progressed to the point where what he does is not that fancy anymore?
I don't know. I would probably push back on that a little bit because what he's done, and you can look at whether it's Chad Morris, whether it's Gus Malzahn, Tony Elliott, obviously Hugh Freeze. There's a number of people that are highly successful offensive coaches that were cut from the same cloth. Now, maybe you can make an argument that he hasn't evolved and become maybe a little bit more dynamic with the approach, where others have maybe passed him over in that regard. But I think it goes back to what you said. When you make the right choice at quarterback, it can change everything. If you make the wrong choice at quarterback, I think you're going to be fighting an uphill battle. You couple that with what I viewed as an unbelievably undisciplined team, particularly when it came to penalties, particularly when it came to execution. And it just turned into a recipe for disaster. I mean, how many times did we do this show on Monday morning, and our Saturday pastime was to look at the team stats score and go, how many penalties did Auburn have?
Yeah.
Or, how many of them were pre-snap penalties? Okay, how many third down conversions did they convert? Oh, well, not very many. Well, I wonder why that is. And it was just a repetitive thing that they could never get corrected. And to be honest with you, and I think we saw it on Saturday night, you talk about portal additions, their offensive line is in shambles. And everything kind of begins and ends right there with every team in America. But when things are struggling, it gets really magnified.
Yeah, I tweeted that out watching that game the other night. I got frustrated watching it going, it seems like somebody blows a block on every play. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 blocks, but at least one block seems to be blown on every play.
Well, Jim, I saw your take on Saturday after the game. Might have been yesterday you posted it, but you are right about the personnel side of things. This is an increased roster of talent. And then because that's so evident, that adds a layer of pressure. It adds a layer of expectation. Well, if we've seen this happen, why aren't the results and execution happening?
Right.
And that's a very fair question, and a question that everybody should be asking. The good news is, I think, now dependent upon what happens, who you go after, what the portal scenario looks like, is whoever gets that job may have themselves a nice little nucleus of pretty talented guys to work with, as opposed to going out and taking over a 2-10 job or a 3-9 and a 2-10 back-to-back season job where it's a complete overhaul.
Yeah, and to my point, what I was making there was in 2021, the recruiting class was 19th. In 2022, it was 21st. 23, it was 18th. And all of a sudden, it was 10th and then 8th. Now, it's sitting at 32 right now. Something had fallen off. But Lugs, when you're 19th, 20th, 21st, 18th, that may not sound horrible around the country, but that means you're 9th or 10th in the SEC. And those are the teams you're playing. So you have to keep up with in recruiting.
Well, and the thing is, and we've run those numbers for years now, and the reality of the situation is everybody talks about recruiting rankings being on paper, and they are, and especially now, because now whoever you sign, I mean, what's the chance that 70% of those guys are going to even be on your roster in 18 months?
That's right.
So, but let's just assume that they are. If you took the 4-year average of every single team that has played for or won the national championship, the 4-year average of the recruiting class leading into that championship season was a top 10 class on average. So you kind of know where you need to be each and every year if you want to be not just a national championship caliber team, but a college football playoff team.
We'll get to the games in a moment, but let's talk candidates here. By the way, Hugh Freeze gets $406,000 a month through January 31st, 2029. Nice little paycheck in the mailbox there, a little mailbox money for Hugh Freeze. We'll talk about the candidates, that roster, how you hold them together, and then get to the games on the field. This is Monday Morning Live. He's Tom Luginbill, ESPN, and I'm Jim Dunaway, Roback.com, promo code TNR20. They bring you the show. You can jump on with them anytime, Roback.com, promo code TNR20. All right, DJ Durkin's the interim. According to reports, our boy Justin Hokanson, our man Justin Hokanson at Auburn Live, reporting that there was a loud roar heard from inside the meeting when DJ Durkin was talking to the team and the players. You know that he can rally these guys together. He's got head coaching experience. Auburn's his 4th stop as a DC in the SEC. He's been at Auburn, A&M, Ole Miss, and Florida, but he was the head coach at Maryland back at 2016 through 2018, fired in October that year after an investigation into the death of Jordan McNair, an offensive lineman who died under heat stroke. It was found to be a toxic culture fostered by the coaches. Should be pointed out, as I always do here, DJ Durkin, not part of the offseason training program back then because head coaches and on-the-field coaches could not be around during that time. That was a training staff issue, but he was the head coach, so he's had to wear that for a long, long time. Do you think DJ Durkin, before we talk about others, do you believe he's a guy who gets a hard look by Auburn to be the head coach permanently?
I think it depends on the results. How does the team respond? What does he get out of these kids? If he's going to come in and, as we all know, has a very extensive and successful defensive background, and all of a sudden, as we've seen offensively, the struggles for Auburn start to improve and you start to see more production, you start to maybe see a bit of a different approach and you're getting more results, then I think you have to at least sit down and examine it. I don't think there's any question about that. I think every time you have an interim situation, just like Philip Montgomery at Virginia Tech and, others across the country with all of these openings, that's their audition, right? How realistic is it? How legitimate is it? I don't know. But I also believe that when so much of the talk of the hot candidates that are out there are at the group of 5 level, and then you kind of couple that with the perspective, whether it's ego, whether it's, well, we've been down that path before and it didn't work with us. Auburn's a prime example of that with Brian Harsin, a guy that won a ton of football games. And that's where fit comes into play. You have to start asking yourself, okay, what's good enough for us? Like how willing are we to maybe take a bit of a risk, or we've done our homework and we are convinced that this might not be overly popular, but we think this is the best guy. I think that's so hard to do, Jim. And I think what happens is the people that are making the decisions, somebody's got to be willing to stand up to tell everybody else who wants to put their hand in the cookie jar, we're not doing that. That's not how we're going about this. We have a very distinct plan. This is what we're looking for, and this is what we're doing. It's easier said than done. And so with that being said, like, you know, whether it's an Alex Golish at South Florida, a John Summerall at Tulane, Ryan Silverfield at Memphis. There's a lot of really, really good football coaches out there that have worked their way through and have built themselves into successful people. Are those guys you're willing to take a risk on versus somebody who's been a Power 4 head coach, who has been a highly successful defensive coordinator, completely revamped Auburn's defense? How would you weigh those? And then on top of it, like, we're sitting here having a conversation about that job, and you start to look at others that are out there. Like, do you seriously look at Dan Mullen? Do you seriously consider a guy that went 34-14 at Florida? And when Shoegate occurred, I think his team was number 6 in the country when that happened. I mean, is that who knows the SEC inside and out? Is that something you seriously look at? I don't know. I think there's a lot of layers to peel back here with this.
Yeah, for me, Dan Mullen sort of got a recruiting reputation or lack thereof in his final days at Florida, but I don't know how important that is anymore when it comes down to money and NIL and all of that. You don't have to hit the recruiting trail like you used to. I'm going to throw out some candidates for you here, and I want you. I've got 3, but there's 16 that's bouncing around. Okay. John Summerall's at the top. Eli Drinkwitz is in the middle. And then there's a guy coaching Jacksonville State and Charles Kelly, who for some reason his name keeps getting brought up to me by Auburn people. I will just say this. He left Auburn and went to Jacksonville State to be a head coach. And the Auburn people I play golf with said, keep an eye on him, because that's exactly what Gus did. He left Auburn, went to Arkansas State so that he could come back. I don't know if there's any backroom conversation there. Charles Kelly's the name to keep an eye on. What about Summerall, though? He's a guy. Does Auburn have to, outbid LSU, Florida for this guy, or do you think an Alabama native, a guy who won a Sun Belt at Troy, whose wife is an Auburn grad, would he prefer to be at Auburn than he would at LSU at Florida? And after losing to UTSA, do you think he's even off LSU's radar?
Yeah, so I had that game last week. I've had Tulane twice this year. I know John very, very well. I know this. The priority for John Summerall is alignment. Alignment and the ability to know exactly who he answers to and to know there's not going to be any meddling. Now, when you look at the LSU job right now and the perceived disaster that it is from a top-down standpoint, and the fact that you don't have a president, you don't have an AD, the whole entire thing from the outside looking in is ugly. But it's also, I think, widely regarded by anybody that's been in the profession as a top 3 job in America. And he's right down the road. That loss, I don't think, helped him on Thursday night, but I don't think you can also define him by one game. And then, to me, I think he would be a great candidate because he's highly organized. He knows exactly what he wants out of people. And, he has something he always shares with people. He says, he goes, my wife always tells me my greatest strength is my greatest weakness. And that is, I am too blunt with people. And he shared with us, we were talking about the transfer portal and the challenges, particularly at the group of 5 level, because you just constantly are combating getting poached. I mean, that's all you spend your time doing. And he got to the point where he finally said, hey, guys, do you love football and do you want to play here? Because if you don't, I'm going on to somebody else. Now, can you take that approach at an Auburn, at an LSU and be successful? I don't know. Probably needs to be a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more massaged. But I do think that whether it be as an assistant at Kentucky, an assistant at Troy, coming back to be the head coach at Troy, now what he's done, with continuing the Tulane run, he has deserved to be a candidate for every job that's open.
Why would Drink leave Missouri? I don't know that he would, but I hear him being mentioned. And then I'll get to a couple others that have roundabout ties to Auburn that are very interesting candidates.
Yeah. I think that Drink would have interest because is Auburn probably more resourced than Missouri to some degree? Yes, I think in some regards they are. But I also believe that one of the greatest challenges of the Missouri program, and also why he deserves such an amount of credit for the job he's done there, is you are not smack dab in the middle of the southeast portion of the United States. You're having, in many instances, go into people's backyards to recruit. You're having to, if you have a great player like a Luther Burden, and you have guys in state, and there's not going to be a ton of them. It's not like Georgia. It's not like Alabama. It's not like South Carolina or Louisiana. Now you're tasked with not only fighting off the SEC for top players in Missouri, but you're fighting off the Big Ten. So I think he's got some challenges there that you wouldn't necessarily have that would be in the same conversation as Auburn. So I do think that would spark some interest. We know he was on the staff there under Gus Malzahn, and he's had a tremendous amount of success. And I think it's success, guys. Jim, if we're going to be honest, when he left the App State job and took that job, and I think it was success that nobody saw him having.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah, because he used what I believe it was Satterfield had success, and he sort of just jumped in and had 1 year of riding that success and got the Missouri job, and he's done a really good job there. He's an interesting candidate. Kenny Dillingham was the OC there in 2019. He's 35 years old. I think he'd be popular with some Auburn people. Kenny Dillingham, what do you think of him?
Well, first of all, he just coached a rabbit out of a hat on Saturday because they lost their quarterback for the year in Sam Levitt. And, I don't know how many folks in the Southeast are paying attention to Arizona State, but that quarterback is a nightmare. I mean, he is really, really good. And you know who they're playing? They're playing with Jeff Sims.
That's right.
You remember Jeff Sims?
I do.
That's who they're playing with, and just went on the road and beat Iowa State. I think he's one of the finest young coaches, but I also think he is literally at 35 years old at his dream job. He is literally at a place.
That's his school, right?
Conference.
That's his school, right? That's his school, right? He's a graduate.
That's his school.
Yeah.
And, he went right from being a student there to joining the football program, basically saying, I'll do anything for free. I just want to be a part of this. And now he has found himself at 35 years, and he's in a conference they can compete. I think it would be a difficult lure for him at 35 years old, given where he's at, but certainly a candidate that should be brought up.
It'll be interesting to watch Dillingham, Brom, Key, and Lee for any job. They're all at their school. Harder to leave those places, in my opinion.
And Brent Key's a big one there. You just brought up Brent Key.
Yeah.
I think at Auburn and LSU, it would be, because I think what he has is unique in the sense that he's been at an Alabama where you have access to elite players at every position across the board, right? And you go into just about every matchup where you're going to have distinct advantages. Then he takes over at Georgia Tech, where you have to find ways to create advantages. And he's done it with toughness, discipline, effort, and then knows how to combine those two things, which to me makes him very, very attractive.
If Big Auburn booster still loves Jimbo Fisher like they did in the late 2000s and the early 2010s, and they announced 60-year-old Jimbo Fisher, what do you think the Auburn fans, how would they react? How would you react?
Well, I would react simply by stating this is a guy that has coached a lot of football and a lot of wins, and he's won a national championship. And all of the other candidates we just talked about don't have his record and have not won a national championship, right? So in fairness, you're talking about experience. You're talking about a guy that knows the league inside and out, knows the university. Depending on what happens at Florida State, I think is going to be interesting because I think he would have legitimate interest in doing that again. But I think it's a fair candidate. Guys, it's easy to sit there and say, okay, well, he didn't get it done at Texas A&M, and they paid him $75 million. Okay, and that's true. They didn't get it done to the level that they should have. And then we define his entire career by that. And I also think, though, that, Jim, that term fit and alignment and intimate knowledge of the inner workings, they carry some weight, and I think he brings a lot of that.
Yeah, interesting to see what Auburn does over the next few days. But it's DJ Durkin who leads Auburn to play Vandy this weekend, and they're only a 7-point dog. I think that's what they would have been with Hugh Freeze as the head coach. So the changing of coaching hasn't changed the point spread at all. Let's get into LSU Alabama preview, and then we'll get to the rest of the games around the country. Fast-paced Monday Morning Live today with Tom Luginbill, brought to you by our friends at roback.com. Here comes LSU, their first game with an interim coach. If I'm sitting back, if I'm Kane Womack, it's a different play caller. How do I prepare if I'm Alabama for what LSU can do with a talented roster that has underachieved offensively? How scary is a nothing to lose LSU offense coming in?
Well, I think that's always a concern because you don't necessarily know what you're going to get. You may, do a 6-game breakdown or a season-long breakdown, and then the approach could be dramatically different from play number 1 right after kickoff. And I think that's why that first series or two is really important, where you kind of trade the punches and get a sense, okay, well, what personnel grouping do they want to be in? What are the formations? Are they going to shift? Are they going to motion? Are they just going to line up and play and keep it simple? Those are unknown variables that they're going to have to work through. Now, one thing that hasn't changed is that LSU has been a mess in the offensive line. And unfortunately, they're really no different than anybody else in college football. When you lose out in the transfer portal, you lose a first rounder in the National Football League draft. So you're breaking in a new left tackle. You have 2 freshman offensive linemen on the right side. For the vast majority of the season, you've had distinct injuries at the running back position, although that position has looked better with Caden Durham and then the freshman Harlan Berry. So I think they've gotten better there. But I still think that there are things to take advantage. They can come out and run any formation they want, and they can come out and they can try to scheme you. But if they can't execute in the offensive line, at the end of the day, it's not going to matter. Alabama will eventually overwhelm that with talent.
Engage Janze Pierre and let him get after it. 7 sacks for A&M the last time LSU played a football game. For Alabama, as we get our first selection, we'll do our 12-team playoff predictor where we sit before the committee unveils later in the show. But for Alabama, coming off of this bye week, they're 3-0 in one-possession games. They've been elite on 3rd and 4th down. What's the one thing do you think Alabama has an advantage on LSU and maybe a disadvantage in this big matchup coming up at Bryant-Denny?
Well, it's going to be interesting because one of the things prior to 2 weeks ago for LSU on defense, Jim, was that it looked like they were finally starting to turn the corner and get back to what we all had seen LSU be for the last 2 decades on defense. And then the Vanderbilt game and the Texas A&M game, it all evaporated. I mean, Vanderbilt went up and down the field on the ground, right? Texas A&M did the same. This could be a get-right game for Alabama up front when it comes to getting the run game back in order. And I think that they'll test that early. I think that Alabama will line up and intentionally run the football to see, which LSU team shows up on defense. Now, I also think that when you look at LSU on defense, their secondary players are really talented. But if they can't get home up front, I think Alabama's depth at wide receiver will eat them alive.
Eat them alive.
I really do.
Yeah.
And I use that term depth because, and remember, LSU's got a freshman out there at one of the corner spots, but they've also they're good, talented kids. But if they can't get home and affect Ty Simpson, it won't matter.
Yeah, Lottie Brooks and Isaiah Horton is supposed to be back to join the Rico Scotts and the Jeremy Bernard and the Ryan Williams of the world and the great Josh Cuevas at tight end. So that's Alabama LSU primetime. Bama about a 10.5-point favorite when that one opened up. Around the country, Texas beats Vandy in a battle of 2 top 20 teams. Arch Manning
And that was good arch. He made some tough throws. Here comes LSU. Here comes Texas. Texas has played. They played Ohio State closer than anybody else. That's a quality loss on the road to open the season. And that team looked really good against Vandy.
I think is it fair to now start saying after 2 weeks in a row that Arch Manning's starting to figure it out? You know, I mean, even in the Mississippi State game, man, he played really, really well. And then against Vanderbilt, and I think the fact that they got off to a fast start created so much confidence for him.
Right.
And then next thing you know, he ain't thinking; he's just playing.
Can I ask you this?
Coming out.
I want to ask you, and Sark mentioned this briefly, but I noticed it throughout the game. His O-line finally played good, and you know this. Your O-line plays good. The quarterback usually plays better, right?
Yeah, ask LSU, right? I mean,
right.
And that is a very distinct reality. But I think also, too, just like if you watched Arch Manning the other day, like how he carried himself, like there was a hop in his step. He had his shoulders back, you know, there was no hesitation. He was very decisive. He just, the light and might be going on and it's clicking. And to be honest with you, in fairness, and we've said this multiple times on this program each and every Monday throughout the year, is the expectation and the standard for him has been different. Right, wrong, or indifferent, fair or unfair, it has been. And we weren't willing to allow him to grow and develop. And remember, early on for them, you mentioned the offensive line, but they couldn't run the football either because of injuries. And now all of a sudden that's starting to come back. And I understand that 21-point surge from Vanderbilt at the end, but by and large, that was a dominant Texas performance.
Yeah, I thought it was a blowout too until they ruined my my little bet there, that backdoor cover. Vandy gets Auburn this weekend. I think Auburn's got a chance in that game. I'm worried about Vandy. You think Vandy's in trouble a little bit down the stretch? Auburn, Tennessee?
This is what's interesting to me about them is, you know, they seem to be a resilient, tough bunch. They know who they are. They know who they are not. But they also haven't been in a situation before where the standard and the expectation's been this high. And then if you struggle, what do you do? Like, how do you react to that? Because at the end of the day, they've got to win 2 of their next 3 to, you know, compete for an at-large bid. Which I think it's doable. I think it's attainable, but I want to see how they respond because that's uncharted waters for them.
Yeah, I would have them having to win the rest of them, but we'll
think?
Yeah, I think Texas is going to be in line as a possible 3-loss team to get in because of the Ohio State loss. They've got 2 right now.
Maybe.
I don't think Vandy would have a win to get in with three losses.
Probably, yeah, you're probably right. They wouldn't have the win. That's correct.
Yeah. Or I don't know. We'll see. Right now, hard to imagine a 3-loss team getting in, but it could still happen. Georgia beats Florida in the cocktail party. Hats off Billy Gonzalez. Florida played well, but Georgia now has come from behind in 4 of their 5 SEC wins. As Kirby says, they're just tough to beat. Did you like Billy Gonzalez going for that 4th down and 1 with about 7 minutes to go, 20-17 instead of trying the field goal to go up 23-17?
Listen, I think it's easy to sit here and second guess that because you're in a position where you're wanting to put yourself in the best position to win. And in that call, you probably do that, but it's then 23-17. A touchdown still gives them the extra point.
That's right.
And I see that. But I also see the other side of it where what's he got to lose, right? He's going to go out there and say, all right, we're going to risk it all. We're going to lay it all on the line. You know, it's kind of like Manny Diaz the other day going for 2 on the road at Clemson, and he gets it. And he looks like a genius. If he doesn't get it, it's like, hey, what are you doing? So I don't disagree with it, but he was in the game. And maybe people didn't expect him to be in the game, and that's the part where you say, "Let's just take the points right here."
Yeah. Now that you're here, go ahead and play that.
Yeah.
Use that little metrics book behind you and play it by the book.
Georgia's like a bad penny, man. They just keep turning up.
They do. Georgia, interesting down the stretch on the road at Mississippi State, and then they get a home game with Texas. In a game that Texas will be fighting for their lives and their playoff lives, most likely. Texas still with Georgia and A&M. Man, what a great-looking resume if they win one of those or 2 of those. That'll look pretty good for Texas. I know you're looking at your 12-team predictor. That's coming up in a second. You're looking down. Is Texas on there? We'll find out. Oklahoma wins in a playoff elimination game. Tennessee goes down. 3 volunteer turnovers there. I mean, they only had Oklahoma had 99 yards of offense in the first half. I mean, I can't. It's a big win for Oklahoma to keep hope alive. I just can't get excited about where they are right now. But then they get a bye before they come play Alabama. Another team with a bye before they come play Alabama.
Listen, I will say this, man. That Oklahoma team, they are backed into a corner, and they are playing for their ever-loving lives every week. They are in a playoff game every week. And to go into that environment, to harass the quarterback, force 3 turnovers, not have things go your way early on offensively, and then to come out and respond in the second half like that, you got to give Oklahoma a lot of credit, man. I mean, I think that was a game, myself included, where you wondered coming off of that Ole Miss game if the timing of that on the road at Tennessee was just going to be too much. And I thought they were more physical than Tennessee. For the most part, outside of some, spotty issues offensively, they were able to run the football better. I still think John Mateer is a bit of a shell of what we saw the first 4 weeks or so on the season, but the schedule has incrementally increased in difficulty. And so that's put some more pressure on the offense. But the way they won that game and where they won it was really impressive to me. And I don't know, if Oklahoma is going to play like that on defense, they're going to be in every game at the end of the game. They're going to put themselves in one possession situations in the fourth quarter. Yeah.
Hard to say when you give up 27 that your defense played good, but they really did with all the pressures and the turnovers forced and all of that. They really did, because when your offense only gets 99 in the first half, your defense has to do something right. Speaking of defense, Pete Golding and Ole Miss. You don't hear Pete Golding's name nearly enough because of Lane Kiffin. It's cold in Lane Kiffin's shadow. But Pete Golding's defense at Ole Miss sacks Lenore Sellers 6 times. They get 2 interceptions. Ole Miss, without their A game, beats South Carolina in that contest there. Good sign for Ole Miss, right? When they haven't played a good A game, they have beaten Washington State and South Carolina this year.
Well, I'll say this. They picked the right team outside of LSU. They picked the right team to play in the offensive line.
Yeah.
And that has been a reoccurring issue for Shane Beamer. Obviously, he's already shuffled the staff as a result of it. Haven't been able to come up with answers with new coach Sean Elliott, who's an offensive line guy by trade. They cannot protect the quarterback. They can't get any push going, and it's affecting their entire football team. And I feel like it's every single week. You turn on South Carolina and you kind of start to wonder with, the expectation now with Ole Miss for me is prove that you can go out and finish this thing. Don't have a Florida game like you had last year, right? And you're going to have to do it on the road, which they did. You got to do it at home, but come up with a way to finish this thing. But I'm a little surprised there hasn't been more talk about Shane Beamer's security, because that team has not progressed each and every week, and the expectations were huge.
He fired Mike Shula. That's usually a sign that, hey, you were getting some heat, so here's your sacrificial lamb.
That's 2 of them now. That's 2 they fired.
Yeah. So they fired the DC and now the OC?
No, they fired the offensive line coach, got rid of him, moved Sean Elliott from tight ends to the O-line, and now got rid of Mike.
That's right. So he's thrown 2 dead bodies over the bow of the ship. Let's see if he's still the captain a little bit later on. Shane Beamer there at South Carolina with a loss. They've now lost 4 straight games. Jeff Lebby, Mississippi State, they get their first SEC win since October 21st of 2023. They come back. They beat Arkansas 38-35. 1 win away from bowl eligibility. Why is Jeff Lebby not getting mentioned for jobs like at Auburn or Florida or LSU or anywhere else? They just know he's locked in Starkville because he's doing a whale of a job.
He's doing a whale of a job right now. They're 1-4 in the SEC, though. It's only his second year. They suffered injuries to Blake Shapen a year ago, which kind of derailed them, because then they ended up having to go to a true freshman quarterback who at times played well, now happens to be on LSU's roster. But they've been able to, I think what they've done a really good job of, and he deserves credit for, Mario Craver's playing at Texas A&M right now. They're backup quarterbacks at LSU, as I just mentioned. They've had some losses on that roster, and they've fought and they've battled and they've been close. They were so close versus Texas. this time 14-point deficit, fourth quarter, and they have 3 drives. One of them, I believe, was 75. The other was in the 60s. The other one was 43, all to come back and find a way to win that football game. So what I think he deserves credit for, and it may be early to start talking about other jobs, is clearly there's a buy-in there. Like those kids that kept fighting, they kept scrapping, and now something good has happened, and they can see it, they can sense it, and that's what you try to build on. And that's, unfortunately for somebody like Hugh Freeze in Auburn, you wanted to kind of look at that Arkansas game as being that type of game, and then it didn't materialize. Now we'll see if it can for Mississippi State.
Hats off for Macon, Mississippi freshman Kamario Taylor for being ready when Shapen went down to come in and lead a couple of touchdown drives. In the ACC, a conference you're familiar with your work on the ACC network at times, Georgia Tech and Miami, they lay some eggs this weekend. I mean, I know there's still a big race. There's at least an automatic big, but with Georgia Tech and Miami losing, it feels like the chance of multiple bids for the ACC went out the window too. Maybe not. We'll see. A long season, still got a month to go. But Georgia Tech and Miami were 2 good resume teams that I thought had a chance to sort of give the ACC a multiple big. Both of them losing. That hurts.
They went from 1 week ago being in position where, because Georgia Tech, Virginia, and Miami don't play each other, you could have had a scenario where you have, let's just say, Georgia Tech and Virginia, or Georgia Tech and Louisville, or Louisville and Virginia, or whoever, and Miami not playing the ACC championship game, and get a minimum of 2, maybe 3, down to 1, and the end result of 1 weekend. Now, with Georgia Tech, if somebody would have told any of us that we would be going into week 11 now, and that Georgia Tech would be 8-1, at this point, if you said that at the beginning of the season, you'd be like, "Whoa, okay, they're going to be in the mix." But now, because we know that one loss just happened, it seems to kind of throw a little shade on it. But what they have going for them is none of their goals are gone.
Nope.
ACC championship's still there. The college football playoff berth is still there. So nothing changes for them. They went into Carter Finley Stadium at night, tough place to play. Defense couldn't get off the field. Haynes King did exactly what Haynes King always does, right? So if they can get back on track defensively, I think they'll be fine. You've got Louisville there. Virginia just keeps riding the lightning of 1-possession games. I don't think I've seen anything like that since 2022 with TCU. They did the exact same thing. But the problem with Miami is Miami's own worst enemy. And the month of November is a house of horrors. And they seem to fall into this, we're as talented, if not more talented, than most teams in the country, yet we have perfected the art of beating ourselves. So I'll give you, there's a 3-play sequence in that game where second quarter, Carson Beck throws a seam route to Josiah Trader right down the seam, drops it right in the bucket, a perfect throw. He catches it, bobbles it, falls into the hands of the SMU safety. Okay? So that's not on Carson Beck. And they were backed up. This would have got him out to like the 35, 40-yard line. The very next play, SMU takes a shot. They score a touchdown. The ensuing kickoff, SMU kicks the ball off. The ball's going out of bounds. All right? Miami's going to get the ball at the 35-yard line. The returner from Miami runs up at the 9-yard line and catches the ball and runs out of bounds.
Oh.
That's a 3-play sequence that is an illustration and a reflection of what they are turning into. Did you look at their offensive penalties? I mean, it is downright embarrassing. They're giving Auburn a run for their money when it comes to penalties offensively. And then you get down on the goal line in overtime there, and you have a premier player at running back, and you have the best offensive line in America, and you decide to throw the ball. I mean, it's just some of the decisions and what's happening with that team, it's inexplicable right now, and it doesn't matter if you're talented if you spend all time beating yourself.
They have 6 teams, Miami does, 6 ACC teams ahead of them in the standings now that they're 2-2, which is a hard way for them to get into the mix despite their great start to the season and big wins over Notre Dame, USF, and Florida. 12 penalties, including that big roughness penalty with on the 4th and 9 that kept it alive for SMU.
I felt bad on that one a little bit. I don't know about you. I mean, we were talking about that Saturday night, and it does look clear that the players didn't hear a whistle. However, what created the flag was, I think Kevin Jennings thought they had a false start. So he drops back and then he stops and he stands there. And he's waiting for the play to be blown dead. And the guy comes in and lays into him and then holds him up. I think there's a lot of nuance there with that one, but still, you can't do it if you're Miami, and that's what they find ways to do things just like that.
No doubt. If it had been for the team I'm cheering for, I'd have been pissed off to no end that they called that, because I know it's SMU and it's probably only 38,000, 45,000 fans, and all of them with iZods on, but it probably was loud. And I probably didn't hear the whistle, but still, it is a penalty, and it is. All right.
Yep.
So let's look at our 12-team playoff brought to you by Roback, roback.com, promo code TNR20. Listen, tomorrow night's just the first of a journey. You will see some surprises tomorrow night when the selection committee lets us know where their top 25 teams are. I asked you to do a 12-team playoff right now and tell me what you think. I'll ask you first. If we make it to championship Saturday, before you give me your 12, if we make it to championship Saturday, and Ohio State, Indiana, Alabama, and Texas A&M don't lose again in the regular season, and they're in some order 1, 2, 3, 4, does that mean the Big Ten and the SEC, regardless of the outcome of the championship games, are the 4 teams with a bye? 1, 2, 3, 4. Because I think it would be. I think if Ohio State and Indiana, Alabama and Texas A&M all went out and they don't play each other the rest of the way, and they're all meeting in the Big Ten SEC championship game, I think those are basically just exhibition games, and those 4 teams are going to get byes anyway. Do you agree?
I do agree with you. I think that's exactly what's going to end up happening. And I also don't foresee any form of a blowout in those games.
I see what you're saying.
And I do think, when it's fresh in the minds of the committee and they're watching those 2 teams, and they're going to sit there and go, hey, listen, for the last 4 weeks, these 4 teams have been the cream of the crop. They've risen above everybody else. And now they all got to play each other. All right. If those things go down to, because essentially what you could have is the Alabama, A&M, Ohio State, Indiana. That's like 2 national championship games in the conference championship game. So I think there's no question that it would be those 4.
Okay. Tell me how you did yours. Are you projecting to the end of the year, or is this what you expect to see tomorrow night? Or both?
I'm gonna actually project a little bit to the end of the year.
Okay.
On this one.
Me too.
By the way, you didn't make that clear last night. Do you want me to do it the other way?
No. I did it exactly the same way. I'm projecting to the end of the year.
Okay. I was going to say, because if I did it with tomorrow, I would have one switch. I'll tell you what it is. So,
okay, go ahead.
I would have Georgia at 5, Ole Miss at 6, Oregon at 7, Texas at 8, Texas Tech at 9, Notre Dame at 10, Georgia Tech at 11, and Memphis at 12. Now, if it was tomorrow, in Texas's place, I would have BYU.
Okay, because they played this weekend, BYU, Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Give me your top 4, because some people believe that maybe Alabama's ahead of Texas A&M. I think that Texas A&M went on the road at Notre Dame is going to be really, really impressive. But how do you see the top 4 when the rankings come out tomorrow night?
Well, it'll be interesting to see how much credence the committee puts into Alabama winning 4 straight games against ranked opponents without a bye. And right now, Texas A&M is beating 2 teams with a winning record?
Yeah. Well,
one
of them's Notre Dame on the road, though, and they didn't lose to Florida State.
Correct. That's exactly right. In the current state of both of them, I would put Alabama at 3, but I think they'll put A&M at 3.
Yeah, I think A&M is at 3, but I could see when they go Alabama. But they like to. We got that new, supposed to be more exclamation points on strength of schedule, strength of wins.
Right.
And that may help Alabama bounce ahead of Texas A&M. Ohio State, Alabama, Indiana, A&M in whatever order you want. Ole Miss at 5 for me. Texas Tech at 6 for me. Louisville, the ACC champion, at 7 for me.
Nice.
Georgia 8. Oregon 9. Notre Dame in at 10, which to me I think the committee thinks of as a pseudo-ACC team. Texas 11. USF, my group of 5.
Oh, I got USF on Thursday against UTSA. It's going to be a great one.
Yeah. So, a little lull. They're off the radar in the middle of the year. I think they come back near the end here, and I think USF sneaks in there because Memphis has that tricky game with Tulane this week.
I know, but then Memphis was able to come back down 14 on USF and beat them.
Yep.
And then who we're forgetting about in that whole deal is North Texas.
Yep, North Texas.
Who just hammered previously undefeated Navy.
Yeah.
So they could be in the mix too.
Go a little further west. How about San Diego State in the Mountain West if they run the table?
Sean Lewis getting it done with the Aztecs.
Yeah, keep an eye on them. All right,
so
Luke,
hey, real quick,
how
do you? So what put Ole Miss that much further ahead of Georgia for you with the head-to-head?
Because down the stretch here, I think Georgia loses one more time, either to Texas or Tech.
Okay.
Yeah, and then if Tech wins, if it's Tech beating Georgia, it's hard for me to imagine Tech not being in there somewhere too. So
yeah, who do you have Louisville beating in the ACC championship game?
Georgia Tech.
Okay.
No.
And then Jeff Brom goes to Penn State. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, Brom stays, man. He's going to stay. I believe.
Dude, another alma mater guy.
Yeah,
dude.
I believe all these guys stay at their school. Listen, I just don't buy this. I know Virginia's the one team that's unbeaten, and they've got 5 teams lined up behind them with the one loss. I just don't think Virginia can win. Every week I keep waiting for them to lose, and they didn't this past week either.
I'm with you, but they have the best schedule in the ACC. It's not even close.
Yep.
Like, go look at their schedule top to bottom and who they don't play. But we talk about it every week. Can you win one possession games? And they've 3 overtime wins.
Yep.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and 6 wins in the final minute. So not even the overtime ones. They've won in the final minute of the game. And now
wonder how long can it last.
Now they get Wake Forest, sneaky Wake Forest at home this weekend.
Who I can't believe lost to Florida State.
I know.
After they just beat SMU, and SMU and Duke are still a problem in the ACC. That they could screw that whole league up.
That's why they can't have good things. He's Tom Luginbill of ESPN. That's Monday Morning Live, brought to you by Roback.com. Promo code TNR20. Promo code TNR20. Lugs, have a great week, man. Always fun talking to you.
You too. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Have a great week.
You too. You guys have a great day, and the next round starts in about 12 minutes. Hang around.